Grab your pre-workout and turn up that volume. It is time for a new episode of the Powerlifter's Den with your host, Cam Smith. What's up, Powerlifter's Den family? Want to rep the podcast and look good while doing it? Check out my official merch store at plden.company.site. We've got tees, hoodies, beanies, hats, and more, and gear that'll keep you motivated in and out of the gym. Every purchase helps support me and the podcast and keeps the den growing strong. So whether you're hitting a heavy squat session or just lounging in style, we've got you covered. Head to plden.company.site and grab your merch today. Listen, I don't have a beard. I've got this glorious mustache. But even this stash deserves elite care. That's where Wicked Wolf Beard Co. comes into play. Their oils and balms keep the face fuzz fresh, soft, and ready for action. No crusty cowboy nonsense here. It smells great, feels great, and makes me look more like I lift heavy things. Beard, mustache, or something in between, Wicked Wolf's got your mug covered. Wicked Wolf Beard Co. Respect the stash. Head on over to Wicked Wolf Beard Co. and use code PLDEN for 25% off your order. Shout out to my guy Bear over at Summit Performance Therapy, the only person I trust to scrape me, needle me, and massage me, and fix my squat at the same time. If your joints sound like microwave popcorn, or you've been limping since Tuesday's deadlifts, Bear's your guy. He knows lifters, he is a lifter, and he's got magic hands, dry needles, and a deep understanding of how to not let your body fall apart. Book a session and tell him the PL Den sent you. Summit Performance Therapy. Reach your summit. Powered by Bear. Literally. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Powerlifter's Den. I'm your host, Cam Smith, and today I wanted to bring on Patrick Warren. Patrick, why don't you introduce yourself?
Pat Warren. I live in Yorkville, Illinois. I train out of Barbell 413 in North Aurora. I'm a estimating manager at a steel fabrication shop, and I've got a lovely little daughter and wife at home.
Yeah, awesome. Let's get into it. So I think to get started, let's get a little bit of background. I'd like to know how everyone kind of got onto the platform, and I think it's important to kind of hear what kind of gave everyone the itch for powerlifting.
So I was a personal trainer for a while. I have a degree in exercise science, and when the gym that I was working at, we used I learned first of all about Westside from being there. The head trainer there, he wasn't a powerlifter, but we had a couple of reverse hypers and learned a lot about the Westside principles, and we used Elite FTS as a major resource for different articles for our athletes. And through that, I saw an article on Elite FTS website about I don't remember which lifter it was, but one of the lifters ended up being sponsored by them. Was walking by a hotel room and saw these giant guys lifting in a meet, and just said, I want to be that guy. And that story kind of got me looking more into it, and just kind of spun from there. That between having the equipment at the gym I worked at and the guy that I was learning from, and those stories and Elite FTS articles, and Matt Kroc was big at the time, and just seeing those guys, I wanted to be one of those guys. So that's kind of where it all started for me.
Yeah, and I think we can touch on a little bit before you kind of talk about some of the competitions you've done. Kind of being a personal trainer, being in a gym with having some of those conjugate and Westside principles. That's not really like a super heavy powerlifting gym. How did you guys kind of incorporate that in like a gen pop?
I trained a lot of athletes, so we the explosiveness, the box jumps. We didn't use. We didn't have them squat with bands or chains or anything like that. We used them, but not for squats. And we had jump platforms, so we like I said, it was more principle based and explosiveness stuff, because we trained a lot of football players and a couple of pro players, and so I got to apply stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that a lot of people with conjugate don't realize that it's originally made for like athletes and to be used in multi-disciplines, and that's why when you hear like or conjugate doesn't work for raw lifters, you just like want to pull your hair out, because it clearly does, and it's kind of what the original purpose of it was.
Right. Yeah. I didn't, I don't know much about the conjugate itself. I've read about it. I read about it 10, 15 years ago, but I don't really follow it now as a training principle, but I do, I squat against bands, chains, all that stuff. I still apply parts of it. I just don't train with it completely.
Yeah. So what was the first meet you did? Was it, I'm assuming it was a raw meet, or did you get right in
Yeah,
there? Yeah.
it was a raw meet. It was at run at a VFW by the gym that I ended up training at about a year later, Jacked Hardcore Gym in Montgomery, and um, it was I bombed out. I think on bench I couldn't. I thought I was cool and wanted to open up 319, even though it was my max, and I didn't know anything about powerlifting at the time. And being smart and not being not taking bad jumps or bad openers. So um, the meet director was cool. Byron, he let me finish the meet and deadlift anyway, and stumbled on deadlifts. Still just nerves, and just didn't go well for me. But I was hooked.
Yeah. And so I know you kind of competed for a few years and then took a break and then kind of came back into it relatively recently. So what kind of caused the break and what kind of brought you back into it?
Honestly, trauma within the sport just kind of got old, and at the time, my wife and I were engaged, and we bought our house, and I had never not been an athlete, so I wanted to try to, be the domestic and good husband type thing, um, uh, and then just getting back into it. I joined Barbell 413, and right at the beginning of COVID, and then my wife was pregnant, and so between pregnancy and COVID and work and just life, I didn't really go again for a while, and then after my daughter was born, I started going back, and I was just gonna train. I wasn't gonna compete, and I just wanted to get back in the gym and be an athlete and have goals, and uh, that lasted for a little while, and then I started getting into gear again, and then I I trained with Matt, just got me excited for the sport, and I try to shy away from the drama part now. So it's I see it all over the place. It's funny, but it's not for me anymore. So once I got hooked on it with Matt again, he was doing the pro-am for the WPO, the semis, and I joined. I signed up for the the amateur day, and just took it from there. And I won that meet. I think guy on the night crew, I edged him out right at the end. He had to take a huge deadlift to beat me, and just him and I talked after. It was Lee Nash, I think is his name, and yeah, it was just fun. It's fun to be back and competing.
Yeah, and I think honestly, it's the drama and some is so stupid now and all a bunch of bullshit that honestly, if it wasn't for like me doing this podcast and kind of like needing to know it and being able to like use it to kind of my advantage, like I'd love to be not involved in it, but
Right.
um I
You're kind of
think
putting yourself out there.
exactly, but it's what I signed up for. But I think a good point to pull from that is how like the weights never go away. Like you took a break and you
Yep.
came back, and now you're putting up the best numbers you ever have in your life.
Yep.
So I think it's important to note that, like you said, sometimes your body's beat up, sometimes life's in the way. Doesn't mean you can't go back to it. Just I think you just need to be able to set your priorities straight and like know that the weights are never going to disappear.
Yep. And that's part of the joys of lifting with Matt, honestly, is he doesn't deal with the drama. He's a cop by day and gym owner by night, and he has a family at home too. He doesn't have time for it, and I just kind of feed off that. And his maturity is next to none. So I've learned from him in lifting and life, and it's made it a lot easier, to be honest.
Yeah, so tell us about kind of the crew there and what it's like having Matt is kind of run the ship and how the your crew operates and maybe what you guys your schedule is. Just tell us about everything about the crew.
So we got a lot of younger guys who aren't in gear. I think right now Matt and I are the only guys in gear. I think Austin Menon was there for a while. He went out to Vegas. He's with Anthony Hibeka now. Um, we had a couple guys who were training gear, but they're in different endeavor sports, right? Trying to get into different sports and taking breaks from that. So right now, we're the only two really that compete in gear anyway. Every once in a while, a couple of guys jump in it for fun, but the crew that we have is a bunch of younger guys. A couple of them are college, and honestly, it's just fun training with them because I get to, one of the easiest ways to learn something is to teach it. So every day I'm trying to help them, and Matt's trying to help me help them, and we're both. I mean, he's coaching them too, but we just it's helped me kind of get another life in the sport, just helping people, and and they help me too. Obviously, I can't lift without a team, so it's a good relationship there with them. But we have a good group of girls learning a lot, getting into the sport. So it's a couple of guys who used to train with France, they show up every once in a while. The Lidley Bridges are at our gym, so I don't train with them, but they're at the gym, and a couple of guys train with them on Sundays, and so it's everybody's just passing around knowledge, and it's awesome because they'll a couple of young guys will tell me what they learned on Sunday squat and with Eric and Ernie Senior, and it's just cool. Everybody has fun with it, and it just keeps it exciting.
Yeah. So some of those younger guys, how long have they been kind of in the powerlifting world?
A year or two.
Yeah.
A couple of them been at the gym for a few years, but didn't really get into powerlifting because they were still in high school wrestling or something like that. But for the most part, just a year or two.
Yeah.
Since I've known them.
So I'm just gonna make a prediction now because this is what happened with Rupo up at Evolve when he first opened Evolve. He was the only equipped lifter there, and we had a bunch of us. Probably we have a pretty big crew, and like I said, he was the only one equipped. And now then my friend Charlie did, and then me, and then a few others, and now some of the other guys, and it's to a point where the majority is now equipped. So I have a feeling that with someone like you and Manuth training there, like they'll be like, all right, throw me in some breeze, throw on a shirt, and then they'll be hooked.
That's what a couple of the guys that mess around with the gear that haven't competed in gear yet. That's kind of what happened with them. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess, and they're not part of the crew, part of the team necessarily, but there are back before I was going there, Sean Coplin and his guys would come down every once in a while. So like, there's been a lot of people that come to the gym, just, haven't been there recently type of thing. So there's Troy Angelo's been up there because Rudy with Overkill, he had him come up here trying some gear and bench when we were there squatting. But Matt's a bench freak, so he Rudy was kind of helping, asking for help on that a little bit. So we get guys coming in and out. Just the consistent team is just really just the two of us.
Yeah. So let's dive into the gear a little bit. So maybe before we start, let everyone know what your best total and your best lifts are.
So my best total's now 2540. My best squat, I finally hit a huge milestone, 1102. I hit that in end of March. My best bench is technically a bench only, 726, but I just upped my full power at 722. And my best deadlift 755, and that was at WPO last year. So my first time at WPO. So I skipped the 2400s completely. Before I was struggling to get past 2376. I think I got it two or three times, and it's WPO. Thankfully I rose to the occasion and hit some numbers I never had before, and PR'd on squat and deads, and helped me get 25 there, and then at the state meet at Barbell, I got 2540.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's a number that is a lot of multiply people's maybe lifetime dream goals. And I think it's kind of like, to me, 2,500 multiply is kind of like the 2,000 of raws. Like, you don't see it that often. It's something that everyone wants to hit. And I think it's something that I'd like to hit one day myself.
Yep.
So what are you running for your gear setup?
I just got a new Overkill canvas suit. I got a gray line Overkill shirt, and I was deadlifting in just my old canvas before the Overkill canvas, but I don't know if I'll keep pulling in that since it's a little looser. It gives me a little more. It's a little more forgiving, or if I use the new canvas suit to pull in. But that was another thing. I was never able to pull over 700 before. I attempted it a number of times, just never could get it. And now I'm opening 700, and I don't train deadlift. I do lighter reps, sometimes against bands, just sets of 5 or something. But now that I just open over 7, and I don't even really train it now. So I don't know what I'm going to do with the new suit, if I'm going to go to the tighter suit or stay with the looser suit. But
Yeah,
we'll
I've
see.
said it before. I'm convinced that the less frequent you deadlift, the higher your deadlift goes.
That was I kind of had to learn that the hard way. I've forced the issue before and pulled, I'd pull against bands, or super quadded minis on the rack pulls, and then I'd go heavy on Saturday, and after squatting heavy, and I just could never figure it out. Never could get, the last 5-6 inches of the pole, I just never could lock it out. And um, now I just don't train it, and my hips feel, I don't know if it's my hips feel better, or my lower back feels better, or I'm just stronger because I'm just training differently. But
Yeah.
Yeah, the less I train it, the better I do.
Yeah, my deadlift has been something that kind of came out of nowhere because I was for the meet I did in I keep forgetting if it was April or May, but whatever it was, my goal for the meet was 700. And I was at the beginning of prep, like I kept falling a couple times at the top because I would like lock out like too much and I'd like lose my balance. Like you look back at there's a couple videos I've fallen like 2 or 3 times, and then towards the end of prep it just started clicking. We started doing a wave of like some block pulls and adding some bands and stuff, and then we go to the platform and I absolutely smoke 705, and then we go 755, and that was just not a number that was in my head.
Yeah.
But tell me about the gray line shirt, because that's a pretty polarizing shirt. Feel like some people absolutely love it, some people absolutely hate it.
So I started out, at first I loved it, and then I grew weary of it. I was having problems locking out, and Rudy was thankfully Rudy's local to me. So I'm, whenever I'm ready to buy something new, which I've only bought 4 things from him, but whenever he's around, I get measured, and so I'm not screwing up my own measurements, giving it to him. But so when he was there one day, I was like, yeah, I'm having problems locking it out. I don't know if it's a shirt, I don't know if it's me. And he goes, it's you. And it's true. I wasn't questioning the shirt necessarily. Just, I just was having problems with it. And I just had to get stronger. But, Matt was locking out just fine. All the big benchers were doing just fine in it that wear it. So it was a matter of me figuring out what I had to do to get better. And we got, I guess Barzine Viziri, I should have mentioned him before. He's a huge bencher.
Yep.
He's totaled 25 before, and he's an awesome person. He's probably one of the most genuine people I've ever met in the sport. He's always trying to help, always trying to teach, always trying to pass on that information that he used to train with Franz. So he was there for a couple of bench nights. I talk to him every Saturday, and I see what he does, and I just try to mimic what him and Matt do, and it helped me a lot. But as far as the shirt goes, I just had to learn it and just get stronger.
Yeah, so for some of the people that may be using that shirt, what's kind of maybe, if you had to put into some words, like the keys to that shirt?
Don't jack it, just learn it. Put it all the way on. Don't try to set it. Don't try to set it. Just learn the groove. It's not like it's not a really tight groove shirt. You kind of get a little play with. You can have a little play with it. So just put it all the way on, and just tighten up the Velcro tighter than a little tighter than you maybe would, and that's really all I ended up doing, besides just trying to train triceps better. It's a pretty forgiving shirt if you just learn it and have a trainer lockout better.
Yeah, and that's something that I continue to struggle with. I had my first bench session back because I did like a raw weight for like 6 or 7 weeks to kind of just rebuild and build that raw foundation up again.
You
After
did a raw meet, I think, right?
So I did a raw meet in January, and then I did the multiply meet in April, and then did like 6 or 7 weeks of raw just to kind of reset, build up a base again, kind of recomp the body a little bit. And now we're back in it. I tried my F8 shirt again, and my circumference of my body changed. So the chest plate was already big, now it's even bigger, and my arms grew and the sleeves are already tight, so like I just can't use the shirt anymore. Luckily I went back to my 58 SDP and it fits like a glove now, so I'm hoping that we're gonna have like a bench renaissance this prep.
Good.
Yeah, because I think for me the bench is kind of my total killer.
It was uh, when deadlift was going okay before my bench is. I don't want to say I hate bench. I'm starting to love it, but it's one of the, when you have Matt Manuth who's benched, in the gym almost 1,000 if not 1,000, and was benched 926 before at 242. It's hard to, you know it's hard to love it like he does, but I've learned to love it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But I do think overall, like looking at your total and your best lifts, you're very well rounded as a lifter. I don't think there's necessarily like a kryptonite or like a super, obviously 1100 squats, something that few have done. But what do you think attests to being able to be kind of so well rounded, especially maybe on meet day?
So there's one of the things that Matt will say sometimes is don't set goals. And he doesn't mean don't have goals. He just don't, I'm going to do first, second, and third. Like, you don't set all your attempts. Have your openers and then feel out the rest. And, um, internally, you're always going to have, I know what I want on my third, because you got that goal. There's always going to be that component to it, but have, it's, have fun and don't worry about the numbers. The numbers will fall where they will. And, eating right, having, good nutrition on the morning of the meet, the night before the meet, hydration, all that, like whatever you did up to it in your training will show. And if you trained like shit, you will lift like shit. If you had a good, and it doesn't mean you had a bad training cycle or a good training cycle. Just if you didn't put the effort in, it will show. But if you did, and you control what you can, and it should go well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think something that I'm kind of doing this prep is almost um, the opposite, but like in the same aspect of like I'm on my max effort days and my movements, I'm leaving like a jump in the tank or like not going over like a 9.5 RPE to like one, be able to train my accessories harder and actually work on the weak points that'll help me get the total I need, but also keep my CNS in check. And like, for example, like if you go look at my post from today, like I could have made a 20, 30, 40 pound jump, but I don't need to do that on this type of movement to know
Mm,
I can still hit that goal meet day.
right. Yeah, there's a time and a place to push that, but it's not every day. And I think that was one of my downfalls before I took a break from lifting was I thought I had to. Well, I thought I had to, but I also wanted to squat 1,000 or almost 1,000. Once I got that mark in my head, I got to do that if I want to move up to the next one, which was 1,100. And I went up to Monster Garage one day when Sean's team was still up there, and uh, I worked up to 1085, and they were like, "You should do 11." And I went down like 7 inches with it, and I was like, "I'm not getting this." And I called it, and it was one of those like I didn't need to. I already PR'd. It was probably a high 1085, but I PR'd that day. I didn't need to make that 20-pound jump at that such a large scale for me. So it's just training smarter has been huge for me, and that's one of the things that Matt's probably Barzine too has been installing in me is just you don't have to make those extra 30, 40-pound jumps just because.
Yeah, and a prime example is that is a couple of my friends like John Rupo, Andrew Pfeff, both squatted 1200, and during their prep, the heaviest squat they took, I think John's heaviest was a 1153 with a reverse band. I think Pfeff didn't take more than like 1135. Like it's something
Yeah,
that yeah, you can tell what number is going to be their meet day by how you're moving these sub maximal weights. So there's no reason to blow your CNS or miss the weight because you fucked it up and then be all in your head meet day.
yeah. There's like when I'm going to be doing the WPO this year, so um, come July, probably later part of July, I'll start the training for that. But this last month, I've been trying to PR in different ways. I had a raw PR, which isn't anything special for in the grand scheme of raw lifts, but I hit 804. It was a huge milestone I
I
wanted to
was
hit.
just going to bring that up too.
Last week I hit 1025 in briefs. The most I'd done in briefs and wraps only before was 1,003. So like I'm like, you don't have to PR all the time, but if you're going to PR, do it when you're not in a meet cycle. Just have fun. Like that's what makes training fun. We're all meatheads. We all whoever says they don't have an ego, they're lying. They have an ego, even if it's just internal.
Yeah.
That's why we all got screws loose. That's why we're in this sport. It's fun to test ourselves like that. So if you're not ever PRing unless you're on the platform, that's the time to PR competition wise. But you know, you got to have fun training too, and being able to set PRs is part of that.
Yeah, and you
So
mentioned taking PRs on these variations, like, say your best pull was 700 on a block pull, and then you pull 705 in training and it moved better than your 700 did. Like, you got stronger. There's no
yeah,
reason to push that envelope
right,
because, and realistically, it's in the gym. It doesn't matter.
right,
But
right.
kind of going back to that 804 squat, something that Mike Skiba kind of puts a huge emphasis on is the raw training, the raw volume. So, kind of, how do you guys incorporate the raw training and the importance of it in your multiply lifts?
So every Monday I train. I train with three people lately, and we do a lot of box squats. I don't let them wear belts. I don't, no gear whatsoever. When a couple of them are still learning the sport, so
Yeah.
every once in a while they'll put a belt on if they're nervous. I don't want to hurt themselves. So,
Yeah.
but one of the one of the biggest things that people don't train enough of is core. So train your core without having to do sit-ups. Just don't wear a belt, that sort of thing. So we do a lot of box squats. I'll do them on Mondays. We do them against bands. We'll do 10 sets of 3 or 8 sets of 3 or whatever it is that day. We'll do 5 of 5 against bands just to get a little volume in. We just started incorporating chains this week. Just a different load factor, just the different. The chains act completely different, and they're the first time they squatted with them, they were very surprised at how different it is, but how similar it is at the same time. So that's Mondays, and then Saturdays. Saturdays I usually, just because I train like I do on Mondays, we'll do. I'll back up. So Mondays we'll do generally 200 or 300 reps, between 200 and 300 reps before we even go to the squat or the deadlift platform if we're pulling that day. We like to do a lot of I like to do a lot of pre-exhaustion. That was one of the things that Matt taught me a year and a half ago, a little bit before I started competing again. And once I started doing that, I saw a lot of strength gains. And it kind of, to the point you were just making about not making that extra 30-40 pound jump. If you do 200 or 300 reps of like legit work before you start squatting, there is no 30 or 40 pound jump.
Yeah.
So it kind of takes to a point, it takes the injury factor out of it too. Generally speaking, when we get hurt, it's going to be when we're taking that maximal lift, and that when maybe we shouldn't. But if I'm already fatigued, I can't. It's going to be hard to make that extra lift. So, you still work up to potentially 90% lift that day, but that extra 10% is what you don't need. So we do a lot of pre-exhaustion. Saturdays, in the beginning of the meet cycle for WPO, I'll do on Saturdays. I'll do pre-exhaustion too. Maybe not 200 to 300 reps of it, but 100 to 200 of hard work, so that I'm going, because meet day you're never going to feel exactly like you want to. So I try to train that way as much as I can.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of something we incorporate too. It's not necessarily in that sort of aspect, but we will do like a 5x5, 5x4, 5x3, like wave of squats before we pull. And I think that's been a huge factor to obviously come meet day. When you get to deadlifts, you feel great because you're used to squatting volume before that. And
Yep.
obviously there's other factors like being warm and stuff. And my favorite thing from it is the fact that you can just start on deadlifts with like 3 or 4 plates because you're already warm. But
Right. Which is very similar to meet day. You don't
exactly.
have to pull just the bar and just the plate or 2 plates. Like you if you're able to pull five plus, you can start at an appropriate weight that's not just a 1 plate, 135 or something.
Yeah, and like meet day deadlift warm ups, that's kind of something that we can touch on a little bit too. Like, you're, especially in a multiply meet, one, you're already gassed. You're from benching and your back's hurt and your hands are hurt and everything. But
Hands are swollen.
yeah, like you only need to take like 3-4 warm ups at most before you're ready to
Mhm.
go out there, because at one, you're warm, you just kind of reinforce some technique. Like, if if you have those numbers out on the platform, like you're either going to pull them or you're not that day.
Right.
No amount of warm up is going to like prepare you for that.
Right. Yep.
So, as far as the WPO goes, tell us about your experience with that, as well as kind of maybe some of the goals from the previous one that you're going into this one for.
So I actually only got invited last year to the WPO because I messaged Greg Dominga and asked him what the standards were, uh, and he, we want a minimum 550. We prefer 600 gloss. Uh, and then he asked me what I would be hoping to get if I were to compete that year. And then he said, "Oh, those are stout numbers." And he put my name in the hat and let me know if, because at the time I think they'd already invited all the people and they were just waiting for people to either say no or drop out or whatever. And he ended up telling me I got the invite. Wayne ended up messaging me, telling me I got the invite, and um, I got to compete with Matt. So that was one of the reasons why, because I was gonna go to help him either way. I flew down to Florida the previous year to help him, and I was going to do that again this year because and goals wise, I wanted to compete there someday after being there. And of course, the history of the WPO, Dave Hoff,
Yeah.
all the old heads from the early 2000s, you could name tons of them, and still wouldn't even crack the list of like, I want to be one of those guys. And so um, to get the chance to, I went into it knowing I wasn't going to win, not because I put myself down or anything, but just when you have people like Dave Hoff, Anthony Oliveira, Matt Manuth, people who have placed, Travis McKinney,
Yeah.
Tenajero, is it Tenajero or
Yeah.
Tenajero? He didn't compete last year, but to be at a meet where he competes, I think he's going back this year. I'm really excited to compete against him. He's a technician, and I learn a lot from his videos. So, just watching people be able to compete against people like that is just a big goal. And I did. And going into this year, obviously, last year I placed third, kind of unexpectedly. As the meet was going, I kind of started realizing there was a chance, and uh, it turned into a unexpected outcome, and my wife and I couldn't have been more happy about it. And Matt was there with his wife, so it was fun, and we got to, it was Vegas, so we obviously got the party and all that afterwards. But going into this year, there's the lineup this year is stout, to say the least. Farrell Herndon, Daniel Tanagero's coming back, obviously Hoff, McKinney. I'm sorry, I'm misplacing all the names, but every week I'm getting more excited because there's another big hitter, and it's, I'm not saying third place or second place or whatever is my spot, but that's obviously the goal is to place again. But ultimately, I just want to finish the meet and not fall victim to the WPO bomb out, and obviously, hopefully, PR as well.
Yeah, and I think, in my personal opinion, I think honestly some people share that getting like third place at the WPO is almost like winning because you got Hoff and McKinney that have been taking first and second for the past
Right.
4 years now, and
That's what Travis said on the platform after he's like, it's good to have some new blood up here, and because it's usually, I think a couple of times it's Daniel Tenajero, so it was cool to be one of those guys for once.
yeah, and it should be interesting to see what Herndon can do. I really think if Herndon could put together a great prep and kind of show out on that platform, he could give both of them a run for their money and kind of
Absolutely.
make them both push the envelope to maybe go for some numbers that they've not touched before just to get that win.
But and it'll push Hoff more. It'll push both of them more. So it'll be a good show. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, and I know you also, in February are planning to do Holy Wars 3, and that's a meet that I've been to both of them. I'm obviously very close with Mike and pretty much everyone that's competed there. I think it's a phenomenal meet, and I'm very excited to have you experience that. So maybe tell us about if you have any kind of some different mindsets with that in terms of what you have for goals, or kind of just tell us about what you're excited for.
I haven't really thought that far ahead. Just
Yeah.
trying to, I'm not even focused on WPO yet. Trying to have fun this part, first part of the summer before I get into training and annoy my wife because I'm trying not to go out or do too much, unless I want to, type of thing. And but ultimately, the goal would be to place there too. The lineup that's going to be there is just as competitive, if not more competitive, in its own right. Traveling is I haven't had to travel for too many meets, but traveling out east, I've bombed out twice in Ohio, so anytime I go east, I'm a little nervous, but it'll be fun. Hopefully, I rise to the occasion and do well there. I know Robert Baines, I think, is going to be there, and
Oh yeah.
watching him get his 11:51 last year. My buddy Austin, who helped me at the WPO with Habeka, he was out there competing, and he said it was just a awesome meet to be at. The atmosphere is next level. So I, going back to the ego comment I made earlier, if you can't feed off that, if your ego can't feed off that, and try to hit some monster numbers, then you shouldn't be there. So I'm hoping the intensity is just the same, if not more.
Oh, it's absolutely insane energy there. It's just full throttle the whole time. Like you almost get caught up in just the awe of it just being
Mm-hmm.
there because obviously a bunch of my friends were competing and I'm helping them out with warm-ups and stuff, but at the same time I'm like handing off a bench, I'm peeking over and like watching
Absolutely.
someone else, and like it was at Hellbent last year, and so Mike's gym is kind of small for a meet, so they rent the like building like across the street, so you have
Yeah.
you have everyone waddling down the street to go to the platform after they hit their
Mm-hmm.
warm-ups. But
Okay.
this year it's going to be at the new Evolve location, so it's a really nice gym. It's going to be a really nice setup, so I think it's going
Yeah.
to be even better. And I think one of the really cool things about what Mike wants to do with Holy Wars is to continue to have it be like a traveling meet, to allow some people like across the country to compete and
I
kind of
think I
get.
remember him and Sean were talking about. Sean Coppel was talking about, or Skiba was they were talking about how they were talking about maybe at Wolfpack someday or something like that. And that'd be an awesome concept.
Yeah, and I think it's something that kind of, at least personally, I haven't seen before. I don't know if there's maybe a meet in the past that kind of did that, but I think it'd be really cool and give a lot of people opportunities that maybe just don't have the funds to travel or the time to travel to these big
Right.
meets that they get invited to.
Right. Yeah. I it's expensive to travel
Yeah.
for sure, but I think moving locations like that, but keeping the same platform and intensity and all that, I think moving that's I don't, like you said, I don't know of any meet that's ever done that. Any meet promoter that's done that. It's usually for the big sports, the NFLs, the MLBs, the UFCs. They can change venue, but maintain that same level of competition. But powerlifting is usually in a grungy gym or the back room of a hotel, or like my first one was at VFW. So anywhere cheap that they can rent, type of thing. So moving would be awesome. WPO, I guess, moves too, but
They just kind of bounce back.
that's
And
just
yeah.
right.
But I think this is a good little segue into one of the topics that you brought up on the questionnaire about kind of too many federations and maybe not real competition and being almost too spread out. So maybe tell us about um, what kind of, I guess, importance to that of you is that.
Uh, it'd be great, it used to be there used to be meats that were mostly multiply with a few raw when I started, and then it was kind of half and half, and then it was mostly raw, and then being where I'm from with Lily Bridges and just being where France kind of started the whole thing was gear, and then once the Lily Bridges started being who they became as a family, just raw kind of they helped push the raw elite type thing, and um, it it's rare that you get more than 5 or 6 people in a general meet now, unless it's like a WPO or Hellbent, the Holy Wars, where it's a multiply specific meet. So it's I don't want to say it's watered down, but when everything's a participation trophy, unless you win the whole meet, and it's just, you don't get to compete anymore. You lift and you compete against yourself, but there's not, there's one or two people in a weight class that are lifting multiply. If you're lucky, there's more than two. So it's just, the level of competition will be better, and we'd probably get more people in multiply if more meets were ran like Holy Wars or WPO, and they don't have to be money meets. They just have to be multiply meets.
Yeah.
It's just, the BS behind the gear does all the lifting and all that. You guys, you and Shauna were talking. I was listening to your podcast with Shauna. The gear doesn't do the lifting. It's whatever you said. You were quoting Connor. It's a technical sport with a strength aspect, or whatever he said, and that's true. So if people could learn or see that more, that like the WPO, there's a 132-pound guy could technically beat a 275-pound guy and get a trophy for it. With everybody getting a medal, that's just not possible.
Yeah, and I think that
weight classes.
Yeah, and I think that's honestly something, even in my short time, that I've seen kind of grow and change for the better. Of obviously, we have Holy Wars, we have Strength of Heroes, like these meets that are starting to not only get more prize money, which is great because obviously it helps us pay for travel and get more gear, and obviously no one makes a living off it.
Spend it right away.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like you win the meet, you go buy a new shirt. It's pretty much, or you win the meet, you sign up for your next one, you pay for it.
Yep.
But meets like that kind of bring light to the sport and kind of help maybe bring in the community aspect of it and bring in some more competition. I think I agree with you. And there's too many federations. There's almost too many meets going on, which is great and bad at the same time. Cause it's great because it allows more opportunity for people to join the sport. But at the same time, like you said, it kind of waters down the competition.
Yeah.
If there's 5 different federations holding their nationals all in the same weekend, like,
yeah,
who's your competition? 1 or 2 other people that maybe
all the different world records, all the different national records. Like, yeah, you have that record. I have records in the UPA. I think I have a couple in the APF. I that's great. I'm proud of that. But at the same time, I want my name on the all-time list. Now I'm fortunate that I'm, staring down numbers like that to even be in part of a conversation like that. But if, I don't know how many federations there are, 100 plus probably at this point, because everybody gets in their feelings and wants to start their own because they didn't like the rules of that guy was enforcing or not enforcing, or, whatever. It's just, it gets old, and it, goes back to the drama that we were talking about in the beginning. There's only more federations because of drama.
Yeah, 100%.
They didn't like the rules. They thought this guy was making too much money, or whatever. It's just go lift. Just have fun. Like, that's why we're all here.
Yeah, powerlifting's almost become to a point where it's like, obviously there's some people that are like, I'm only going to do RPS meets, I'm only going to do APO meets, and like, whatever. Like, I don't agree with that, but make your decision. Like,
right.
But at the end of the day, it's like we're almost competing for open powerlifting spots now. We're not competing against each other like it used to be.
Right. Yep.
So I think these meets and stuff will bring that competition, and when you're competing against other people that are similar to you or pushing the envelope like that, like, you're going to up the list on open powerlifting. You're going to set the standards higher. The records are going to grow higher. Like even just the Strength of Heroes meet I'm doing in September at 275, I'm competing against like some of the best all time. I'm competing against Delafive. I'm competing against Bob Merck. Like, I could go 2350 at that meet and place like 4th. Like, that is not a common thing at a meet.
No. Yeah. No, that's I don't know is Delafave doing Holy Wars?
Most likely.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, he took the all-time record from Maynooth. So, it's to be competing against guys or training with guys like that. Like, personally gets me excited to be in the sport and part of the sport. But, I don't want to be the big fish in the small pond. I'm happy to be not the strongest person in my gym, whereas most other people, their egos don't let them think like that. And, Sean Copeland, that guy pushes more people to higher levels than, unfortunately he's had a couple injuries, obviously. And, but he he's one of the few in the sport that I feel like, as far as coaching goes, truly wants everybody else to beat him type of
100%.
mindset. Like, you know, Crystal Tate, she's been around the game. When they were on your podcast, when Sean was on here individually, like he's genuine. You know, not everybody's genuine anymore. So if people could take that genuine mindset and apply it to the meets that they go to, the federations they compete in or don't compete in, last couple years ago, the drama that was in our area with the one gym, we don't have to get into it, but well, I'm done competing WPO, or I'm done competing APF, or because of that one gym. Well, that's not necessarily, either, but I understand it. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, but there's a stand on APF because of that, or WPO because of that. Well, no, it's individuals, not the group.
Yeah, and I think any good coach or leader or head of the crew or the strongest guy in the gym is, like, for example, like Rupo's going to be taking off some time to just basically get a shoulder fix and some things like that. And he's like, I want you to outpull me in September
Yeah,
or a couple meets from now. So when I come back, there's a fire under my ass, and then we can start going at it. And it's only
right.
going to bring us both up. Like, and other things like that too, of like, if you're the strongest person in the gym, it's time to find a new gym.
Yep.
I don't
Yep.
know where that someone told me that, but that's something that's like, if I don't have competition anymore, if there's not someone like chasing me or I'm chasing someone, like it kind of takes the fun out of it. And
Yep.
I forget once again who said it, but I think it was Skiba. It's more fun to be the hunter than to be the hunted.
Absolutely. I like that. Uh, People like Connor Kowalski, Conjugate Strong.
Yep.
He's he's posting a video 3 or 4 super supportive of people around him. It's I forget where I was going with that. Sorry, but it just, people are not genuine anymore, and I think if people took that mindset and applied it to everything, uh, sport would be better, especially the multiply portion of it.
Yeah, and kind of what you're saying, like he goes to different gyms, I go to different gyms, and I think being able to go to the different gyms of like, if I want to go, like next week, I have a max effort deadlift. I'm going up to Connor's gym in New Hampshire because he's one of the best deadlifters I know. Being able to pull with him, he's going to get me to that point of like, all right, we'll go back and forth. Maybe I can chase him. Maybe I can get him on this day. Things like,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe he can teach me something because he gets so much out of his gear, which for deadlift like is something that not many people do. Like, so
No,
being able to go back and forth, like I like to go to visit Hellbent sometimes on a heavy squat day because the energy there is insane, and I know I'm going to hit a big numbers. And
right.
that's why I think when people are like, no, I'm going to stay in my gym only, I'm not going to go anywhere, like you're just holding yourself back at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Back in the day, I went to Monster Garage a couple times to lift with Sean and those guys. We went to, I went across town to Barbell Central when that gym has since closed, but I went there once and ended up joining there after a while because of some drama. Um, it was you get to learn different things. You get to see different things. I at every single meet, whether I'm competing or not, I'm watching every single person, from the weakest lifter to the strongest lifter to the loudest person to the quietest person. And I'm trying to learn something from every single thing I see, because it'll teach me what not to do, but it'll also teach me what to do in different situations. How not to, attempts, to take better attempts. How did that person respond after missing an attempt, or how did they respond after getting it? I've been getting super excited after squats the last few meets, and I waste a lot of energy, and I'm not, I don't control it. It's just a reaction, but I'm wasting a lot of energy going into bench. So I'm trying to pull different things and let my maturity level increase, and going to different gyms, going to different meets, and coaching, or I'm not a coach, but helping people at meets, trying to teach them how to stay calm or when to liven up. You know, you learn something every single time you open your eyes if you wanted to.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's one of the things I'm excited for with this meet in September being my first pro meet, kind of seeing how these professionals carry themselves in the warm up room. Like, what are they doing? Like, what is Chris doing in his warm ups that makes it his squat so good? Like, what is this
Mhm.
person doing? What is like how are they different than this pro? Like why would this work for me? And I gotta obviously I have to pay attention enough to worry about my own meet, but I was telling Shauna, like at a meet like this, I gotta remember that I'm still competing too and not to just watch these pros.
Right. But at the same time, that distraction might help you.
Yeah.
You know, trying to, obviously, to a point, you got to focus, but learning from Chris is like learning from Matt for me. Last night I told him it was probably the best bench training session I've ever had. And we didn't leave the bench for 2.5 hours, but we were doing circuit training while, involving the bench. And we were throwing bands on and not throwing, we lessen a band, increase the weight, bar weight. And then, we were going back and forth. And I ended up tying, at the end of it, I ended up tying my raw PR after a lot of volume, way, way, way too much volume in order to meet my PR. And I told Matt, he's like, wait, is it really? And I said, yeah, I'm not that strong of a bencher raw. My best is 425. And I benched 425 after 2.5 hours of benching. It just shows me I'm either not trying hard enough raw or I need to train more raw than I was before. And, him and I make a good, he if I out rep him on something, the next set he's increasing the weight or he's increasing reps and staring me down. And I got you this time. And, it's a healthy competition, but uh, I'm always learning.
Yeah, and that's what makes it fun. But as far as like the rub, and that's kind of why bench pisses me off so much because, I mean, my best in competition is 390, and that was back in January. I think I've gotten much stronger then. Besides having some pec issues, like I think if I was fully healthy, I could probably bench around 415, 425 if I had to guess. And the fact that I'm only benching low fives, maybe mid fives in the shirt is like I got to figure this out soon.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. It's hard, but once you find what helps, you'll make big jumps.
hmm But I think we can kind of wrap things up here. So I'll ask you my final question. If you could give a new powerlifter or someone going into their first meet a word of advice, what would you tell them?
You're ready. No, everybody doesn't want. Nobody's ready to compete, is what they say. I'm not strong enough. Yes, you are. You have yet to set your standard. You're not going for an all-time world record. You're not trying. You have technically. You should have no PRs yet. You have gym PRs, but you have competition PRs. You're ready to go.
Yeah, 100%. I think every powerlifter's had that conversation with a friend of, hey, you should compete. And they're like, oh, I'm not strong enough yet. It's like, you're always strong enough. If you can squat the bar and bench the bar and pull the bar, you're strong enough to compete. So start
Yep.
somewhere.
You see people with torn biceps still trying to pull at meets. So you're damn right you're ready if you just commit to it.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to come on. It was my pleasure.
It's been an honor. You guys, you have awesome guests. It's awesome to be one of them. So I appreciate it.
You're welcome.